Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. As usual, we will start from the summary of the previous lecture because now I know that you have become habitual of this, and it is very good that we start what we covered in the previous lecture, and we will then keep on discussing the other material of the course. So what we did in the previous lecture, we talked about that what the public administration should be. The ultimate objective in one sentence of the public administration in all the countries, irrespective of any area, is to provide the maximum well-being to the society. And on the same footage, I would like to say, if any of the public administration is unable to serve its society or community, it is not a good public administration. What it should be, definitely in this context, we can say that the public administration should be designed, should be of such kind that it is facilitator to the community. It is not the pro-rich, it should be pro-poor, because the poor needs more attention on the part of the government or the policy implication. We talked about its narrow and broad perspective of public administration. Narrowly, we can say that it is just limited to the legislature, the executive part of the public policy or public policy. But it is not a single discipline, it is interjunctural, or you can say the interdisciplinary approach that leads towards the subject matter of the public administration. In simple word, I can say the public administration draws its inference from economics, sociology, psychology, anthropology, and many other disciplines. So it is interdisciplinary approach and for the studying of the public administration. If we should be well aware of that it is not a single discipline, it is a combination, it is linked with many of the disciplines that I have just explained. Now what we are going to cover today, we will start from the role and instrument of the public administration. We have talked a bit about the role of the public administration in the previous lecture, but we did not talk about the instrument. So there are three systems available to decide about. What to decide about is that, what to decide? Competitive markets. The competitive markets just working on the supply and demand, or the market forces, they decide where the resources should be allocated. Definitely they have their efficiency, they have their advantages, and on the same time it is not necessarily that they are leading towards the economic development. Most of the time they lead towards the economic growth, but it is not necessarily true that if there is growth there is economic development, or you can say the well-being. The public sector is the critical factor in the public administration. For example, the public administration, the government is the public sector is the umpire. The market forces are working within the shadow or under the umbrella of the public sector. There are the third you can say the system. The third system is there are some non-profit organizations that are carrying out some of the services. So these are three major part of the system that helps in providing the service delivery to the community. The recurring political issue is the right mix and balance. Now the problem is, now there are extremes. For example, if we go to the socialism, it says that the role of the competitive markets should be converged to the minimum and equal, and there should be zero level. It should be the government. Government should provide all the facilities to the community. So it is if I say the socialism simply it is higher role of government. And if there is capitalism, capitalism, now we are in which system? It says more role of markets. So there are extremes. So the problem of the public administration is that how public policy that how to incorporate these all three pillars into that, and what will could be the ideal combination of this. Is there should be the more role of the government? Is there should be the least role of the government, and whatsoever, and only when there is combined system it will work more. These are the modalities that needs to be set. The system in place depends on the response given to three questions. What the question the system should be provide to the people? Who provides? Who decides which to produce, to whom to which goods to be produced? For example, I am not talking about the organizations. I am talking about the part of the government that which commodities should be provided to the community or the humanity. Who produces it? Again goes to the is it distributed through competitive markets, public sector or the other, and who pays this? Whether all these production should be for the rich or this production should be for the poor, or these should be the basic needs, luxuries and whatsoever. These three questions need to be answered by this discipline. As I told in the beginning that I would like to keep on mentioning very interesting articles, materials during my discussion lecture about the public administration. It will be showing sometime the failure. It should be giving you the idea in a specific field. So the first article that I am going to suggest you, that it is about the Hajj policy, and it is written by Faisal Bari, and the date for this is October 25, 2013. It appeared in the Dawn newspaper. So I would like to write it here that yes, it is written that it appeared in the Dawn newspaper. The origin, history and evolution of the public administration. We are trying to cover all aspects of the public administration. Theories will be covered, its failure, why it fails, what are the different dimensions of public administration. We will keep on discussion, but here I would like to start over the historical evolution of this discipline, that in the beginning it was so simple, but now it is interdisciplinary, it is multidisciplinary, it is so complex, it is so critical, it is so important that its importance cannot be denied. The key to the city, in the beginning if we see, the first phenomenon is the key to the city. Key means that the cities were locked. It is very interesting for the new generation that in the beginning doesn't mean that in my era, in the very beginning of human civilization, the cities were locked. There were boundary lines, there were walls on the all sides of the cities, and it was necessary for the people to enter the cities through specific doors. There were doors also, you can say 10, 20, 50, but it was not an easy that you can enter from each and every side of this to the city. There were specific routes, and and at specific time at night the city was closed and it was locked, and nobody was allowed to go in and to go out, irrespective of some of the emergencies, and most of the time all the emergency dealing mechanism was within the cities. So it was a very beginning and an era when the only way to enter city was through a locked gate. So it means it was the first exhibition of the public administration to save their city. It has some purpose. It was not just to make the boundary lines and lock at the night. The purpose of the government, of the state or the ruler was to provide security to the people who are cities, because on those days there was, you can say, the trades. The people were traveling from one country to the other countries, and there were, you can say, that not the terrorists that could attack the cities, and they were very famous for looting the cities. So this was the first step or first example of the public administration, that the community, the humanity was saved from some specific dangers at night in the cities. The profession of administration began and developed as a profession of arms. In the beginning, the first of all, the public administration was applied to the arms, because there were no states. There was state of the power. Who was the powerful? He was the ruler. So to become powerful, to dominate the other people, you should need the arms, the weapons at that time. And even now, you can say, very destructive and mass destructive weapons are available nowadays with many of the countries, and Pakistan is no exception to it. So it means, very interesting, still army has a very critical role, and the discipline of public administration started from the profession of the arms. War is not possible without effective system of public administration. So it was their concept. It is equally likely and equally important that it is applicable right now, that war without true public administration is not possible. You can see the wars of 1971 and 1965, only 6 year difference between the two wars, but the results are totally different. In the second war, we lost more than half of by population part of our country, but in 65 due to good public administration of the war troops, it was we were in a position to resist a much bigger army than ours. Military officers were the first public administration. To salute to again the military or the military personnels, military, you can say the leaders, that at that time they were equally important, and right now their importance has not increased. In the beginning they were the true public administrator, because we have just started that the public administration started from the profession of the arms. So definitely, if there are arms, there are the soldier, there are the army personnel. So the military officer were the first public administrator. First armies were mobs with managers. The composition of the armies was that it was a group, and there was manager, one group, 2 or 3 groups, A, B, C, and X, Y, Z were their managers. It was their duty to manage their group. But gradually developed hierarchy. Now you can say, now there are all those 4 or 5 are equal in ranks, but now you can say there is a hierarchy. If we see from our army, our military, you can see that the chief of the army staff, there is also the ceremonial post of joint chief of staff committee, but the army chief, that is the lieutenant general, is the most powerful. Then there are, you can say, the major general, brigadiers, colonels, majors, captains, and so many others, up to going to the Naik, the Lance Naik or the Naik. So then it means over time this hierarchy of public administration took a different as it was in the beginning. The Romans were first to transform power to expert. The credit goes to the Roman Empire, the biggest ever empire of their time, that they introduced the concept of expertise rather than the military. So these were the most civilized people. They believed in the situation that the expert can perform better than the military. It means now there was a small touch of some expertise or small touch of the education, that the more education, more expertise, more experienced person were needed rather than just only the military personnel. So this was just the beginning and the origin or the history of the public administration. Antiquity means the past years, the old years to the 19th century. Now we are delimiting our discussion of this the history of public administration into different eras. So we are starting from the 19th century. In the first lecture I said that it is not a very old discipline. As compared to the other, it became as a special discipline, or you can say in the form of a discipline, just 100 or more than some more years than 100. If we date back to the era of the pharaohs, kings and emperors have required their pages, treasures. Definitely they need some resources to run their government, and for that purpose they do tax collecting to administer the practical business of government. If in the very beginning the pharaohs, the kings and the emperors, they need some kind of people that could collect taxes, create resources to run the day-to-day business of the government. It means it was the first rough shape of the government. Prior to the 19th century, staffing of most public administration was rife with nepotism, favoritism and political patronage. How the persons were selected. In the previous slide you learned about that the Romans were the first to introduce the merit, or you can say the expertise, experience. That is also a kind of merit. They were first to introduce there. And if to go to the prior to the 19th century, as we have started our discussion from the 19th century, before the 19th century, the selection of these administration was totally based on the nepotism. You may be looking that we are just at the same time the people or the countries were 126 years before. Still in our public administration selection is nepotism, favoritism is there, and political patronage is there. Nowadays you are looking at the print and the electronic media, there is a heavy scandal, massive scandals that give that how the incompetent people were selected for a very critical post of the public institution, public post, public responsibility. That is why that nowadays PIA, steel mills and many other government entities are going into a deficit. So this was some of the concept before the 19th century, that the people selection, or now we can say that simply the selection of the public administration were based on the nepotism. Still it exists, favoritism it still exists, and the political patronage. And what is interesting, it is called, it is referred to as the spoils system. Look at this spoil system. It was not the correct system. Spoil system, definitely that spoiled the nations, spoiled the institution, spoiled the states. Many of the states could not survive due to this way of public administration. You can see about the recent mean not too away from here from now, the Mughal emperor, that was a very large they were the emperors, but they were poor in management except a few. Public administration have the eyes and ears of rulers. Public administrators are very clever, and for a government they are playing the roles of eyes and the ears. Government can see the reality from these public administrators, and these are the ears government can listen. It means government can get any of the feedback from I and these public administration, and these are the rulers. और इसीलिए आपको पता है कि जो ज़्यादा अच्छे कान और नाक हैं, they are always part of any of the government. If there is people party government, no worry about them, they will be getting key post. And if it is Nawaz government, they never get shy to get post by showing that they are responsible for not for the state but to the ruler. Until recently, in medieval times, the abilities to read and write, add and subtract were dominated by educated elite as public employment. In the medieval age, what happened? There was a paradigm shift. Now to get job, to become a public administration, there was some, you can say, the basic criteria, that was the education. Although education was at very very initial stages, and the disciplines were not as elaborative as nowadays, but still the plus minus, the multiplication, or these simple things were necessary to be a part of the public administration. Consequently, the need for expert civil servant whose ability to read and write formed the basis for developing expertise in such necessary activities as legal record keeping, paying and feeding armies, and levying tax. These three functions to keep the records. All the states have used to keep their legal records. Paying and feeding of the army, they were not paying and feeding to the public, but the record was only available when they were paying and feeding to the armies. Definitely it should have record. I still wonder that in our army, or the, you can say, establishment says that they are not accountable. There should be record, and they should be the accountable. And levying tax, definitely to create resources, and those emperors were so strict about collecting the taxes, they over imposed the taxes to the community. There were also problems of that the most of the taxes were imposed on the poor. This is another debate, but we are still just coming to the public administration topic, that the era changed because now the merit or the efficiency was the one of the basic condition to be the part of the public administration. As the European imperialists age progressed and the military power extended their hold over other countries and people, the need for a sophisticated public administration grew. This is a historical study. You know, the people say that it was a time when the sun never sets in the for Great Britain. They conquered many of the countries, and they expanded their empireship all over the world, just few exceptions. So what was this? Now the only simple concept of public administration was not possible. Now they have to utilize some of the forces, mechanism that they could keep control over all the countries, because there were different culture, different religions, different other mechanism, different dynamics, different ground realities. So it means the public administration became a complex as compared to the medieval ages. So now we see that how it progressed. The next one, the 18th century noble King Frederick William I created professorate in commercialism in effort to train a new class of public administration. Now there was a concept that the public administration should be trained. पहले आप देखें nepotism और अपना political affiliation was the basic criteria to be selected. Then there was, if you have some of the education, it is good, you could be the part of the public administration. But later on what happened, that the King Frederick William, who took the initiative, and he said that the public administrators should be trained. Why? I can guess that there was to increase the efficiency. Look at this, how this concept came to his mind. And what happened? The universities of Frankfurt were emphasizing economic and social discipline with the goal of societal reform. Due to this, the Frankfurt universities located in the Frankfurt, they were giving arguments. They were changing their discipline, they were changing their curricula in the context that there should be economic and social discipline. And what should be the goal of social reform? What the social reform? That the betterment of the society. आर्मी वाला रोल जो है वो ख़त्म हो गया, कंकर वाला रोल दूसरे कंट्रीज़ पे डोमिनेशन का ख़त्म हो गया. नाउ द अटेंशन वाज पेड टुवर्ड्स द वेल बीइंग, द डेवलपमेंट, द ग्रोथ and the happiness of the population. So what they devised two major disciplines, economic and social discipline, with the goal of social reform. Johann Henrik was the most well-known professor of commercialism. Thus, from a Western European perspective, classic medieval and Enlightenment era scholars formed the foundation of the discipline that has come to be called public administration. The credit goes to John Henrik, who first became the professor of this discipline. And from Western Europe perspective, classic, medieval and Enlightenment era scholars framed the foundation of discipline. They now were serious about the forming of the discipline, that it could work for the betterment of the communities. The story continues. Very interesting story. कहाँ से जी चली? The key concept of the cities. That in the cities there, I will be briefing at the last in the summary. Von Stein, not the Dale Stein. I think you know who is the Dale Stein. It is a man from which our all batsmen are. Not only our batsmen, but the batsmen all over the world, and now it is called the Stein gun. So the von Stein in 1855, 158 years before, it was a German professor from Vienna, is considered the founder of the science of public administration. So as the people know about the founder of the economics, the Adam Smith, you should remember that the von Stein, Americans doesn't accept this, but because it is the most of the world acknowledges that the von Stein is the founder of the discipline of the public administration in many parts of the world. We will see that to whom Americans say that he is the founder of this discipline. He introduced this public administration as a separate discipline. In the time of von Stein, public administration was considered a form of administrative law, but he believed this concept too restrictive. When the von Steins was talking about the public administration, at that time the definition of the public administration was so restrictive, and it was only the administration of the law. But he went against this. He argued that this is not true, and he said no, it is a very, very narrow and restrictive definition. And what he said, he called public administration an integrating science, and stated that the public administration should be concerned with both theory and practice. He said no, the previous was only talking about the practice. He said it is an integrating science. It means it's a combination of different disciplines, and it is not only concerned to the implementation of the law, but it is related to the theory and the practice. In other sense, what he was saying, he was arguing that the public administrator should be well aware of the theory and the practice. And what he further argued? He further argued that the public administration is science because knowledge is generated and evaluated according to the scientific method. He called science is discipline becomes or a phenomena becomes science when it is generated and evaluated according to the scientific method. Then he tried to put the public administration in the framework that it can be analyzed, it can be generated, its discipline, its knowledge can be generated and according to the scientific method. If we are unable to apply the scientific method, then we can say that it is not science. But as the scientific method quantitatively or quantitatively come into action, we say that the discipline has become a scientific study. Still, you see the title of the slide remains the same. From 19th century, it was era of change, particularly in the context of the public administration. In the USA, you have just listened about me a few minutes back that according to the whole world, the von Stein is the founder of the discipline of the public administration. But the United States people have their own idea. They think that Woodrow Wilson is considered the father of public administration. Now we will see that what was the difference between the Woodrow Wilson and the von Stein. These are two starting big guns of their era, or you can say these are the two founder of the discipline of the public administration. What he said, he first formally recognized public administration in 1887, and the title of the book was the title of the article was The Study of Administration. When he wrote this article, there was a huge change of the discipline, and it was written in 1870. What he said, the future president wrote after this Woodrow Wilson, this phenomenon of the study of the administration, it is the objective of the study to discover first what government can properly and successfully do. What was his emphasis on that? Looking at this, he first said that the first fundamental the government should do is look at what government can properly and successfully do. It means it was just some viable solution to help the community, because when he talks about that the properly and successfully do, government makes many heavy claims as we are listening that we will end the energy crisis by 2013, 14, 15, and now I can say to the infinity. We don't know when this will be but these are not the viable solution, because the government has not some specific plans. They are just and they are scoring marks, otherwise they are not serious, or they may be serious, but I would like to say that they are not capable of doing these things, because they have no proper training, no proper understanding of this. And if you are public policy maker, public administrator, and you do not know what is the reality, I am sure you are not to implement the law in the true and in the letter and spirit. And fortunately, if you apply it in the true sense, I am sure that it is not going to get the required objective. The second thing he said, that how it can do these proper things with the utmost possible efficiency. Look at it, in 1870, he is asking about the efficient government role, efficient public administration role, and still we are looking that unfortunately in Pakistan there is no efficient public administration. Due to this lack, many problems exist. And at the least possible cost of the money and energy, two things that are equally important at this stage. He said that the public administration should be done efficiently, not just only done that it exists like in Pakistan. It should be done efficiently, and how? With the minimum usage of money and the energy. It means these were the two critical factors at that stage, and he was fully aware of the importance of this money and energy. These are the resources, and I think he should be given the time also. Still the situation and the story is going on how the public administration developed historically over time. Wilson was more influential. Now this is a very, very critical statement. It is not my statement. I have taken it from referenced peer-reviewed articles. He was more referential to the science of public administration than von Stein. Why? Primarily due to four concepts he argued. वर्ल्ड मानती है कि जी वॉन स्टेन जो है वो बाबा पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन है. द अमेरिकन सेज नो, वुडरो विल्सन इज द लीडर ऑफ द, और यू कैन से द फादर ऑफ द पब्लिक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. And now we are seeing that Wilson, in true sense, it is debate. It is not what I am saying that it is 100% you can say the undebatable. It is debatable, but the Wilson was more influenced. Why he was more influenced? We are talking about the four concept. What he argued, separation of politics and administration. आज भी हमारे जो है वो अदलिया चीख रही है, एक्सपर्ट चीख रहे हैं कि जो है वो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और पॉलिटिक्स जो है they should be different from each other. When the politics enter into the public administration, the countries becomes Karachi. Look at there, what is happening there. Every time you are listening on the print and the electronic media, that what is happening there, there are nepotism in recruiting the police, there is political interference in the administration. That is why the result is that on average 10% are losing their life daily if you compile the data of over 2 or 3 years. It means in year almost 360 people lose their life due to this unrest or that one. So he argued that was not argued by the von Stein. He argued that the politics and the administration should be independent. It is still true, and unless and until, particularly in the developing countries, if this is not the situation, the public administration effectiveness will remain a dream. The second concept for which he is considered to be more effective than the von Stein, that comparative analysis of political and private organization. Before him, the people were only talking about the public institutions, the political institution. Now he said no, there should be a role of the private organization. Why he was talking? I may guess that he was talking that there is more efficiency in the private organization, and he was in the position to tell the governments that the efficiency could be increased by following the private organization or the private institutions mechanism. This is the second one. He talked about the compareness of the political and this was the first one. And अदलिया इंतज़ामिया को सियासत से जो है वो पार कर दिया जाए. The otherwise that we should make a comparative analysis. If you do not make a comparative analysis, you keep on believing that the system you are applying or functioning, that is more effective or more efficient. But when there is a comparison, one of the charismatic beauty of this comparison is that it allows us to choose the right selection among the alternatives. The third was when he talked about the private organization. Now comes the other. I just told you that improving efficiency with business-like practices and attitudes towards daily operation. He said the government should work like a business person, that he is always about increasing the efficiency or mechanism of a system. So the government should follow, because previously he is advocating the comparison of the political and the private organization. From that he want to deduce that the improving efficiency, how to improve, like the private sector. I am dead sure that if steel mill and the PIA were the companies of any of the private person, or you can say individual, they would have been working in a very, very profitable manner, because the PIA remained monopoly for many years. Now there are the Air Blue and one or other airlines that are competing with, and Pakistan Railway, that is in a massive deficit. It is still a monopoly on rail transportation in Pakistan, and it is difficult for me as a student of economics to understand that a monopoly is going into deficit. And every time we have listened about that the monopolist earns extraordinary profit. So there are many of the problems. The fourth thing he argued that was different from the von Stein, Wilson said that improving the effectiveness of public service. How? Through the management and training civil servants merit based assessment. जो आज हमें दीमक की तरह चीजें जो है वो काट रही हैं, these were argued more than 150 years back by a scholar. What he said, that increase the efficiency of the sectors, institution, public institution, and it is very simple, that manage the civil servants, train them in a proper way, and the selection, the recruitment, and the promotion should be based on the only the merit-based approach. If you apply, if you study the behavior of the developed countries, one of the fundamental part of their public administration, with very, very few exceptions, was that the merit-based approach was applied there in the public administration. Public administration is the representative of the society. His policies, his implementation methods directly affect society, positive or negative. Fortunately, if it is positive towards the society becomes prosperous, and the vice versa. Now, thanks God, we have traveled 20 years from 19th century, and now we are at by the 1920s. Scholars of public administration has responded to Wilson's idea. Look at from there, if I want to make a hierarchy, the first was the von Stein, the founder, then came the Wilson. We studied 4 arguments that make him different from the von Stein, or you can say the important than the von Stein. Now what is his ideas, the Wilson ideas, were not out of critics, and many of the public administrative experts at that time responded by 1920, responded to Wilson's idea, and this textbook in this field were introduced. It means it became a discipline, and now the textbook were available for the students. This was in the light of the document presented by that there should be management, public servants management, so there were the books available for this. A few distinguished scholars of that period were the Gulick, Ervik, File, and Frederick Taylor. These were other big guns, but the 2 biggest guns were the von Stein and the Woodrow Wilson. These in the 1920s, these people also worked enormously, contributed to the discipline of the public administration. The Frederick Taylor, among these, the Taylor it is called a Taylorism also. The principles of the Taylors are called the Taylorism also. From 1860 to 1950, believed that the scientific analysis would lead to carried on operation. He also believed in that the efficiency of the public administration could only be achieved if there is a scientific analysis. Scientific analysis becomes more objective rather than the subjective. And as it becomes more objective, its efficiency increases. It is not a rocket science that I am telling you. It is a very, very simple phenomena. And now you can see that there are many scientific tests, national testing surveys in which you appear for MPhil or PhD to get admission in MPhil, PhDs or any other scholarship. You are tested scientifically rather than you can say the qualitatively. This, according to him, could help save cost and time. Again, look at this. I wonder that there is again concept of economics. Again, he is talking about cost and time. If you go remember, there was the least cost of time and energy, and here cost and to save cost and time. So it means the scientific methods are more powerful, more reliable. They can reduce the cost of functioning of the public administration, and they can also save much time. And what is time? Simply speaking, the most precious commodity or the resource is the time. That's why we are not taking care of this. Every time we are taking time lightly and not taking extra care about it, that we should, because the developed nations are very, very careful about this. Just leaving this discussion to discuss with you that every person gets the money for his time. You go to the doctor, you go to the lawyer, all are getting money for their time. So being a student, your time is extraordinarily precious. I will say that your time is even precious than any other person, because you are the public administration of tomorrow. And what is the Taylor approach? As we just described in the previous slides, that Taylor's approach up to first the Weinstein, the Woodrow Wilson, textbook discipline started, and now the Frederick Taylor's, and we will see that Taylor has some special approach towards the public administration. What is the Taylor approach? Taylor approach is often referred to as Taylor's principles, or it is also called the Taylorism. It's scientific method. Now you will see that in all the definitions, in all the approaches, the word scientifically is by default added there. It means now these social scientists has accepted public administrator. They do believe that the public administration is a science. So the first is it has constituted 4 arguments. What are those? Replace rule of thumb work methods with methods based on a scientific study of tasks. He said that the traditional method should be kicked out of the scene. And how the new method? That the more scientific approaches. He was against the status quo. He said no, the traditional, the classical tools of the public administration are not effective, and they should be immediately removed, and they should be removed, they should be replaced by the scientific studies of the tasks. The second one is scientifically selected. He was saying scientifically select. Now there could be the 2 concepts. Selection of the study it could be the selection of the employees. Scientifically select, train and develop each employee rather than passively leaving them to train themselves. What is happening here? Hit and trial. Every employee says that he has enough experience. The experience an employee get in 10 years, he can reach at the same level if he is given a good training of even 1 or 2 days. So the training is very important. So now the Taylor is providing argument that the employees should be selected in a scientific way, non-objective. Hit kar raha hai nepotism, favoritism and political patronage. These are all being directly hit by this Taylor, that is a big giant in the political economy, in the public administration discipline. Rather than being hit and trial, they should be trained. The training is the integral part of the public administration, although there are training where not in Pakistan. I am now talking about the Pakistan. Trainings are available, but when the trainings are based on the learning objective, the people from who have no say to the higher authorities, they are forced to attend the those trainings, and when there are not major benefit. But when these trainings are out of the country, particularly in the USA and the Great Britain, the people themselves select, or they select on the people on the basis, not on the basis of merit, but on the basis of this on the basis of nepotism, favoritism, and the others. The third is that it provides detailed instruction and supervision of each worker in the performance of that worker's discrete side. Now he says that there should be detailed instruction. ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि हर आदमी को पता हो कि उसका काम क्या है. There should be delimitation of the responsibilities. There should be specific criteria for this. I am not mentioning to the third umpire. I am saying that there should be delimitation, the specification of the criteria. Scientifically, the provide detailed instruction and also supervise for each worker in the performance of that worker discrete task. The employee has discrete task, he has some special task, and he should be provided guidance, supervision, instruction, so that he could be evaluated on the basis of those criteria. The fourth one is divide work nearly equally across administrative. This is, he is talking about not the centralization, but he is talking about the decentralization of the, you can say, the command and authority. It is a very, very good phenomena. And in the developed countries, if you study that there are grassroots level local government that help the poor, they are more aware of this. And fortunately, in Pakistan, the local government election are going to be convened in the last month of 2013, and we should hope that this makes a significant change in the life, in the miseries of the poor population of Pakistan. So when the work is divided among the different and the responsibility is shared, so now different minds are contributing towards the single destination, or you can say, rather than only one mind, now there are many minds. For example, if you say that this is A's discipline, this is B discipline, this is C's responsibilities, they are all part of the organization. Now you have divided your organization into the groups, the teams, and whatsoever. POSDCORB, very meaningful word. No pronunciation for this word. But this is not, I have not just imported it that it is something, a puzzle, but it stands for, you can say, a sum of the functions of the public administration. Golek, if you go to the, by 20 here, you can see, he is also a big guns in the discipline of public administration. Golek developed a comprehensive generic theory of organization. Organization and administration are alternatively used in this course, and summarized the duties of administration with an acronym. Administration को क्या करना चाहिए? By the way, our administrator do nothing. Keep on sitting, make gupshup in the offices, waste time, waste resources, waste energy, and then come after taking heavy and hefty benefits from the government, and ultimately they are not sinking Pakistan, they are not sinking only themselves, but unfortunately when the Pakistan will sink, no one will be there to come them rescue. And again, I would say it's very fortunate. We are all lover of Pakistan. We want Pakistan being progress. That's why we are so critically looking at the public administration, because it is my belief, being a student of the public administration, that the public administration can bring changes more effectively, more easily, and more quickly as compared to the other changes. For example, if you inject any of the economic policy, it takes several, you can say, months, days, or years to show its result. But if there is a good public administrator, by one command, he can change the situation. So what is POSDC? The P stands for the planning. Now this acronym is for the duties. If you want to remember, if you are a public administrator or you want to be a public administration in your future, and I wish to be a higher level public administration, and at the same time I would like that you perform your duties in a very positive way, you make a change, a significant change, which is that there should be a planning. The administrator should be a good planner. If he is not a good planner, the plan well begun is half done. This is the fundamental and the basic start of the public administration. There should be a very good planning, organization. How to organize that program? If there are many organizational methods, for example, if I say this is my organization, I am the head of any of the public institution, I say I would like to keep all the powers with me, and I would like to implement this plan. Well and good. If it works, I am good. If it doesn't work, definitely people will criticize. Staffing. How to choose the team? Staff is the team, the wheels of this planning and organization. If you select the good people, the expert, the experienced person, your task is further facilitated and it becomes very easy for this. Choosing the staffs independently is very critical, because if you choose the staff on the basis of, not on the basis of merit, but the other criteria that is prevalent in Pakistan and was prevalent in many of the developed countries when they were in the initial stages of their development, they were nepotism, the favoritism, and many others. Directing. You should direct the people. You are at the higher post. You should have the ability. You should have power to take the decision, the courage to take that decision. It should be remembered. Think about many times before taking any direction. But when you take decision, then implement this direction on any cost. The coordinating. Nowadays, there is a social capital, the era of social capital, and the coordination or the coordinating, it has become a very critical part of the public administration. For example, a public administrator has to coordinate with many other disciplines. For example, if you are the principal of a college, you will have to deal with many others, the building department, the education department, the account office, the land department. Many departments you will have to, you are now a public administration, you have to deal with these departments. So you should have the negotiation power or coordinating. You should in a position that you convince the people in the coordination. Reporting. You should be a good reporter of all the activities are being done. Either you will have, your responsibility is to convey it or not, but you should have a good reporter. And I can guess that in the previous lecture when we were talking about the definition, one of the definition that the public administrator are nothing but they are good competitor of the essay writing. So if they write good essay, that was, I think, about this, that there should be the planning and the reporting. And the budgeting, this last B stand for the budgeting. Again, there should be a financial plan. All plans go into smoke if there is no the financial credibility of this. Even there is disruption of the financial flow, the program, all other programs that are dependent on the sustainability of the flows, cash flows of the financial plans, they become ineffective. So if now you see, this is the planning, this is the organization, this S is the staffing, this D stand for directing, this CO stand for the coordination, R stand for the reporting, and B stands for the budgeting. So being to be a good administrator and to remind, these are not only these are one of the few, or you can say the major responsibilities of any of the public administration. The second generation theorists drew upon private management practices for administrative sciences. Over the years, generation over generation, that the group that is called the second generation theorists, they saw that the efficiency in the public sector or the public institution, it was not increasing. So they tried to follow that we just studies, that the private management, as we studied that the Wilson is being preferred over the von Stein, that the private management practices for administrative sciences, this could be the more effective. In other way, indirectly I can say, now we are getting the solution of our ill entities like PIA, railways, and the steel mill in privatizing these things. A single generic management theory bleeding the borders between the private and public sector was thought to be possible. They thought that there could be a story that can link the private and the, you can say, the public sector, because there was very hard and you can say the critical or the most debatable line between the private sector and the public sector. In the beginning, we started that theory are the provider of the services, the government sector, the market forces, and then was the non-government organization, NGOs. Here the concept is that the discrimination between the public sector and the private sector, it could be merged into one of the theories. So I think it is time to, we will continue this discussion of the history of the development of the public administration. Now I would like to give you the summary of this two-day lecture. We started from the history of the origin history or the evolution of the public administration over the years. We started in the beginning that the army personnel were the first public administrator. Why? Because the army was the only well-disciplined organization at that time, because the dominance, the power, the domination of the resources was only dependent upon the army personnel. The other key concept was then there was the locked cities, and the government or the emperor or the kings or the ruler at that time was thinking about to provide the safety or many other facilities to the people, and they used to make wall around the cities. This was the first basic concept of this. Over time this concept evaluated, and if we keep on discussing, with the first person come who gave a tremendous dimension to the discipline, that was the Stein. He is called the father of the public administration, but you know the Americans do not believe in this phenomena. They believe that the Woodrow Wilson was the father of the public administration, and we discussed about 2 or 3 things on which Woodrow Wilson is being preferred over the Stein. Then there was another group of the big guns of the public administration. Over time the development continues. The one major difference comes into the account. The first is that in the beginning model they were just concentrating on the nepotism, the favoritism, and the political patronage, but now the system has changed. The studies or the definition are changing. They are saying that this is a scientific discipline. It should be evaluated on the scientific ways, and it should, in this way, it will be performing in a better way. We will continue our discussion of the history of the public administration. So see you in the next lecture. Goodbye and Allah Hafiz.